One last thing for course management before we switch to the off season was your thoughts on laying up. When should players lay up? I know Decade's super easy with, off the tee. We got 60 yards. We hit driver. We got a driver tree matrix. I love all that. What about laying up with hazards involved, not hazards involved? I get a lot of people kind of pushing back on that because I try and just tell them, hey, get it as close as you can unless you can't get over something or it's super narrow. Do you have any math formula or anything you kind of think about
I
with
mean,
that?
it's just 100% get it as close as you can. I
Okay.
mean, this is what's interesting is so we always talk about shot patterns and having like a range of outcomes directionally, but you also do distance wise. So if I put you out there at 260 and you're like, my favorite shot is 80 yards. All right, so we got to move it 180 yards. You don't just hit it 180 yards. I mean, on the PGA
Mm.
Tour, a 200-yard par three, the shot pattern is going to be 40 or 50 yards deep. So if you're trying to lay it up to 80 specifically, you might do that every so often. I mean, Tiger on approach shots, I wish I knew this number better off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure this is pretty close to correct. Tiger got like 42% of his approach shots plus or minus 5 yards from pin high. Tiger.
Yeah,
So
that's
if he
crazy.
was if he was 260 trying to get laid up to 80 yards, he'd get within 5 yards of that probably about 40% of the time.
That's wild.
It's
I'd never heard
wild.
that stat.
Yeah, so I mean, the vast majority of the time, you're going to be laying it up into a window of, if we're trying to hit at 80, probably 70 yards because you don't over pure a golf shot. You know what's funny is I bet you amateurs, if their favorite shot was 80 and they tried to lay it up to 70, they would hit 80 more often than when they try to hit 80. I would guarantee you that's a fact.
I agree with you.
And so it really gets away from I want my favorite shot to I want to be as close as possible, and I'll probably accidentally have that shot sometimes. But laying up, again, we want to remove penalties as much as possible. But if you can get it on the green ever, like putting, it kind of implies the rest of your shot pattern is going to be in pretty good shape to
Hmm.
some extent. As long as there's not too many penalties, you can actually afford a pretty high penalty rate. I mean, a pretty high penalty rate by being aggressive. You're going to make more bogeys, yes, but you're also going to make more birdies. And that's kind of the only situation in golf where you can materially increase your birdies without destroying your overall scoring average. And so, like if you're in your wolf game and you're on 18 and you're 250 and like your pure shot carries 240, I mean, again, depending on how much you will probably do better financially overall by making more birdies, by getting it up and on and around the green, even if you do hit it in the water 20% of the time and
Mm.
just make six and move on.
So you got to kind of think about it more like as a season or not just that like that one time. Because yeah, you are going to have some shots you don't hit well, but it's like you got to kind of play it out a little bit more. So you have the
100%. I mean,
numbers.
again,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it really is just basic weighted average math. I mean,
Yeah, because I was gonna say I remember reading a golf.com article and they were talking about that where it was like, hey, guys are like, oh, I want to lay up to 80 or 100 yards. It's like you just look at your scoring average from 60 versus 80 versus 100. You're gonna hit it closer from the closer distance, which gives you a better chance of making the putt. Guys still love to fight me on this. They're like, I'm just so much better at 80 than 60. I'm like, well, work on 60. Like, what's the answer here?
and I doubt they're right. I mean, again, this is the other thing too.
I don't think they have the decade stats to actually back that up usually either.
No, and this is the thing is like typically it's like this gut feel of like I'm better from 100 than I am from 60 because I always hit these bad shots from 60. Typically the bad shot from 60 is the equivalent of like the average shot from 100. So
Mm.
it's like, yeah, that wasn't a great shot. I get it, but it's still if we drug you back 40 yards, that would be a pretty good shot.
Yeah.
And that's what I
And
think
you can
most
miss the
people
green from 100 pretty easy still.
again, I wish I remembered that number off the top of my head, but I think the pros only hit it like 85% of the time from 80
Yeah.
from 100 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane.